Mrs. Montoro, we're going to answer a whole bunch of questions about 9/11. For me personally, it's easier to talk about them than to sit there and write them out. I was about 12 miles away from the World Trade Center when it happened, so it's still very fresh and raw in my head, even 16 years later. So, Morgan, go ahead and ask.
Where were you when?
Where was I?
Where were you?
I was in anthropology class, third period at Clifton High School in Clifton, New Jersey. And I was working on a cultural awareness project with my classmate Zifara. And we were interrupted in the middle of using the computers by our principal, Mr. Kanisi. We had televisions in each classroom and the library and the gym. Well, no, not the gyms. Where they would telecast our morning announcements. Like you guys will have speakers where a group of your classmates will say the Pledge of Allegiance and give your morning announcements. Well, and when I was in high school, we had like our own TV studio upstairs in the East Wing, and that's where we would get all our information from our principals or our teachers, what have you. And he told all of us that due to the fact that we have a lot of parents who work in New York City, and it was bound to get to their ears, he wanted to let students know that in New York City, it seems to have, there seemed to have been an attack of some sort or an accident of very dangerous proportions. Oh, the cat's hitting me. Uh, on the World Trade Center, and he knew that there was a lot of families here, hairs in my mouth, that would have been working in and or around the southern half of Manhattan. So he felt it was only fair to let us know and that we should not worry, that we are in a safe place. There is nothing for us to be concerned about and to go about your business. So that's what I remember about first hearing about it. What's your next question?
What were you feeling when they collapsed?
Terror. Like it was terrifying because growing up in that part of New Jersey and New York, I was very familiar with the fact that there were several attacks in New York City, specifically, most recently in 1993, there was the World Trade Center bombing. I believe it was 1993. If I'm wrong, Miss Montoro, I'm sorry. But I automatically knew they're going to blame this on Middle Eastern terrorists. And it was scary. It was really scary. I wasn't angry yet. The anger didn't come for a couple of days. And I think that's what inspired that anger, inspired a lot of people my age to join the military. Watching them collapse with my own eyes, not through a TV screen, the smell and the sight, I still have bad dreams about it. All right, what's number 3?
Did you know any people that were in the Twin Towers when it happened?
Yeah, they all died that day.
Who were they?
Nobody you would know. Various people who worked for the different organizations and businesses within Tower 1 and 2. And they were all much older than me. They were friends of my parents, but people that I was familiar with because my parents were in the restaurant business, and I frequented their job every day. It was literally right next to my house. So these were people that I encountered every day who had bought me Christmas presents and birthday presents throughout my childhood, and it was really hard.
Were any of them close to you?
Yeah.
Closer to you? Number 4. Were you worried about your siblings that day when it happened?
Initially, no. The class tone went off, which is kind of like a bell, but it was like a beeping sound went off, and I went to fourth period, which was math. And it was very quiet. I remember the hallways were really quiet. I went to the second largest high school in New Jersey, almost 4,000 kids in that building. And oh no, that now it's pretty big. No, I think back then it was close to 3,000. So it was normally very, very loud and bustling between classes, but it was quiet, really quiet. and I got into math class and I put my stuff on my desk and the phone rang in the classroom. And I remember Mrs. Birch went over and answered the phone. And she said, okay, not a problem, and hung up the phone. She said, Jessica, the office called. Your mother's here. You need to go pick up your sister from her class in East Wing, and you need to go down to the main office. She's taking you home. And that's when I got worried because my mom was a single mom, and we didn't drive. So for her to choose to go into work late, to come pick me and my sister up, and then walk an additional 2 miles up to the middle school where my brothers and sisters were. My youngest siblings are triplets. They were in 6th grade. To go up there and get them, something must have been wrong. Like, she wouldn't have done that even if, like, my dad had died. She'd make us wait school out. So something must have been really, really wrong in order for her to come get us. And I later found out that her boss is actually the one who said, Christine, that's my mom's name, Christine, they got the Pentagon, go get your kids. This isn't good. And that might have been an overreacting statement in hindsight, but at the same time, like, the Pentagon is where all of our military is. How did they get the Pentagon? That's a really scary thought. So when my mom came to pick me up, that's when I got scared for my siblings. Okay, what's next?
Is there anything different you do since the collapse?
Well, after the collapse, yes, initially it was really hard to sleep. And I'll explain why. We live right by the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Airport, and we all hear planes a couple times a day. But I lived outside Newark International Airport and a couple miles away from JFK Airport and LaGuardia Airport. Those are 3 of the biggest airports in the country and the world. And we heard planes over every 2 or 3 minutes. It was just part of our urban din meaning noise. That's a word you'll learn when you're older. It's part of the urban noise that we just grew up accustomed to. And when they had the no-fly restrictions up, it was quiet and we couldn't sleep. And I remember once those restrictions were lifted, I couldn't sleep even more. It reminded me when I was a little girl. When I was a little girl, a building down the street from us, it blew up in the middle of the night, and it was terrifying. It was scary. You know where the what is it called? The fruit place, Edible Arrangements, where that place is. It used to be an auto parts store, and it blew up. It's about a block and a half away from my mom's house.
Yeah,
well,
isn't that one?
it was like the same thing. I couldn't sleep for probably a year after that happened.
Wow.
And then once the planes started going overhead at night, I couldn't sleep. And another thing that's changed for everyone is how we go through security for airplanes. TSA, as kids get bigger, they'll learn that TSA basically means it's the people who are trying to protect us before we go on planes. They check your bags, they check your body, they check your shoes, they check everything.
But they don't check shoes for children.
They don't check shoes for children unless they have a really strong reason to. And hopefully that would never happen, but you'd be surprised what bad people will do. And another thing that's changed, there's a whole lot deeper of a fear in adults my age, and a whole lot more anger towards other people that they don't understand. And what I learned most from all of this is that you cannot blame a religion or a skin color for bad things happening. You have to understand that everybody is different. And I know that changed for me. But I think that it changed in negative ways for a lot of other people. And that's really scary, because you should never, ever hate somebody because of what they believe in, or what color they are, or who they choose to love. And I feel like there's a big divide that some of us learned from that and learned to just love each other, and other people learned to fear from that. And when you become an adult, it's not a good thing to be afraid. It's not a good example to set for your kids. So that fear turns to anger. And being that angry can set a bad example. So what I try and do for my kids and for my students, because I'm a teacher, you have to love everyone. And that's so important. And you can't live your life with fear. So, yeah, 9/11 was a scary thing, but we learned a lot about how to protect ourselves, and we still have a lot of learning to do.
Well, are you happy that the guy who sent the people in the planes is dead?
No, I'm not.
Why?
Because if you understand how he got to where he is, you would know that he was taken advantage of and manipulated, and he was a sad human being who needed help and a hug. And he wasn't given that. He was given the ability to hurt people. And if you have the choice to teach someone who's angry how to hurt people or how to forgive people, I would much rather choose teach them how to forgive people. Make sense? Any other questions?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ms. Montoro. You can use this for whatever purposes you want. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Have a good night or good day or whenever you see this.